So I was waiting until see if some more people show up here. So I'm actually going to go over number 6, and that'll help with that PCH.
Okay, because I'm very confused on 6 and 7. So
yeah, I think most people are. So we'll talk about those.
okay. So do we need the PCH in number 5 then?
You don't have to, but just for learning, try taking it out and see what the plot looks like.
I didn't even have it in, so.
Oh, gotcha. So all it's going to do is it changes the point type. So if you like the way the shapes look, then keep it. My default is I usually use the PCH equals 20 because it's a nicer looking shape is the reason I use that one. I'll give just a few more minutes and then we'll get started. All right, so we got some more people, so we'll go ahead and get started here. All right, so just to start out with, I know some people for the 4.1 practice problems have some questions on number 6 and 7, so we'll look at those together here in just a moment. Just to start out with though, so for class today, we'll do something similar to last time. If you haven't had a chance to look at the 4.1, 4.2 notes yet, you'll want to do that first before attempting the lab. And one thing that I really want to encourage everyone to do is remember that for each of the lectures, there's the video as well as the script for that video is located right above. I really want to encourage you not to just open the script and run it, but to watch the video along with the script, because in the video, I'll talk a lot about the code, how to change things. I'll make some changes in the video and kind of talk through the structure of that. So really make sure you're watching those videos before you attempt the practice problems, especially as we move forward. You know, some of the beginning ones, it was probably, you know, it may have been easy just to look at the script and then work on the practice exercises to kind of mimic that, but that is going to get harder as we go along. So I really want to encourage you to watch those videos, and how I would do it is I would maybe watch 5 minutes of the video, maybe even less, go to the script, play around with the script and mimic what I did in the video, and then go back and forth. And that's going to make the exercises, especially like I said, moving forward as things get more complicated, that's going to make that a lot easier. All right, so I will get started. We'll look at problem 6 and problem 7 on the practice exercises from 4.1. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to look at together as well? All right, then I'm going to share my screen. All right, can everyone see my RStudio? Okay. So just as a reminder, let's look at this piece from the 4.1 script first, and then we're going to, translate that over to the 4.1 practice problems. So from the 4.1 script, we looked at the orange data set. And so just as a reminder, if we look at that orange data set, what this was looking at was different types of orange trees. And so we had age and circumference, and then we also had tree, which was an ordered factor. And what that did was it indicated the tree on which a measurement was made. So we had different trees, and for these different trees, we're measuring age and circumference. And so we could look at a table of orange trees, and we could see that there were 5 different trees in the data set, all of which had 7 observations from that tree. And then we saw we could make a scatter plot where we compared age and circumference for the trees. And so there were several different plots we looked at. This one was a little bit further down. Oh, give me just a second here. Always mess up that line of code. There we go. Okay. So here is our plot. And notice what the colors are here is each of the light blue points belong to the same tree, all of the pink ones belong to the same tree, and so on. So if we look at the code, how we accomplished this was we added in this argument right here. So COL stands for color. And what we're doing is we're setting it equal to that factor. So notice here we've got the data set orange, and we're calling the factor tree from that data set. Now, this isn't saying that we want the color to be equal to the individual trees. It just so happens that since tree was coded as a factor and factors are stored as numbers, what this does is it converts this over and tells R, okay, I want you to use these colors for each of the corresponding points. And so the result that we get here is that we get each of the trees has their own individual color. So when you go to work on the practice problems, 6 and 7, and really I probably should have asked you number 7 first in retrospect. Number 7 asks you to change the color, but now you're not going to change the color based on tree because we're not working with the orange data set anymore. We're going to change it based on species for the iris data set. So for number 7, you're pretty much going to use this exact same line of code. The only difference is, again, color isn't going to be based on tree from the orange data set. It's going to be based on species from the iris data set. So that would be number 7. Number 6 is a little bit more tricky. So let's look at the iris data set. So here, I'm going to just load the iris data. And if I look at table of species, we see here there are 3 different species. But notice if we look at the iris data set, we see that species is one of the variables. And if I come up here, I can see that species is stored as a factor, just like tree was. But by looking at the table, we see that that factor isn't, the trees were numbers is how they had labeled them. Here, they're labeled as words, even though they're factors. So the tricky part here is how to tell R to take care of that. So notice here, I'm calling the plot that we would need. So I've got my scatter plot here. Now to change it based on color, I could just copy my color over. And then I could set color equal to iris species. So this would be your number 7, and see that the colors are grouped by species. Now number 6 asks you to do the same thing except based on shape. So we have to figure out what is the shape command. It's not going to be color, it's going to be something else. So there's a couple of different ways you could do this. You could Google how to change the shape of points in a scatter plot, or you could explore some of the other things we looked at, and you'll find that it's the PCH is what we want. But notice if we run this and we base PCH based on species, we get an error here. And this is the tricky part on this. So the error isn't very clear. So I'm going to tell you how to fix it. For this one, for PCH, we can't do the exact same thing that we did with color. We actually need this to be listed as numeric. So we can use one of our as functions and change iris species over to be a numeric value, rerun this, and I thought that would work. Why did that not work? Oh, sorry, I had PCH up here. I've got to make sure I can't have it in there twice. And now you can see we've got the same plot that we did before, but now instead of our different species being denoted by different colors, now they're denoted by different shapes. So the PCH argument, that's the argument you want to change shapes. The trick to this is, though, we can't just call iris species. We need to change that over to an as.numeric for that to work. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions on how to approach that?
So I actually did it a little differently because I Googled it.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah, there's
Can I
always
share with?
more than one way. Yeah, please do.
So I assigned it to shapes and then did shapes as like that. Does that
That
work?
also works fantastic. The only thing you'll need to make sure is after that, make sure that you call your plot. So you're right, you've got your shapes here, but then you don't actually call them in the plot. Do you have a plot with a different shape?
You mean like, what do you mean? Like when I run it, it shows up, but.
Oh yeah, run it for me. Let's see what it looks like.
Oh, I got to run this first. I guess I haven't run the iris data yet. Oh, there it is. Can you see it, or is it covered?
I can. So see, notice this plot, this is actually number 7. So in this plot, you've got this, see how they're not different shapes, they're different colors?
Yeah, it worked when I was doing it. Now it's not working.
I guess you just need another plot line after that, and you'll need to set PCH equal to shapes, and that should work. My guess is you had that before and then probably copy and pasted, change something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think happened.
But no, exactly what you're doing here works just fine. You're actually doing something very similar to what I did. You're just doing it outside of the plot call. Yeah.
Delete this.
So I think you don't want the quotations though.
Don't want quotes.
No quotes, because you made an object called shapes.
Yeah.
That should work now.
Okay, we'll run that to make sure it works. We'll just run the whole thing and see if that works. No? Maybe because I made them too similar? Because I think they're different.
No, they should be, because if you change color in that one.
Yes.
Take out the color for me, and that way it'll be easier to see. But oh no, they are different shapes. You're right.
Yeah, they are different. They're just similar.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, because you can see the black ones are kind of like diamonds. Pink ones are just bigger circles than your green ones. So yes, that does work.
Cool.
Good work. Good work.
That's what Google does for you sometimes.
Oh no, that's one thing that I really want you all to take away from this class is getting comfortable looking for things on Google, because in all honesty, when you are coding in the real world, I don't know anyone that doesn't use Google while coding. And it really is a skill, being able to figure out how to Google in such a way that you can quickly find an answer. And that really is a skill that hopefully you'll develop by the end of the course, is just learning, okay, what can I type to get to what I need to find some code, if that makes sense. Any other questions?
I ended up using Google too, and I think I just realized that it did me wrong. Let me
Yeah,
share
let's look and see at yours.
So, when I Googled, they said I could do like this PCH 0 to like whatever.
So what yours is doing, the problem with yours is using PCH symbols 0, 1, and 2. So it's
Yes.
3 different symbols, but it's not matching them to the data set.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I just
so
realized that. And when you put color, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, so the reason with the color where we set it equal to that factor, it knows that specific levels of the factor get specific colors instead of just looping it through, like every third one is, has PCH equal to 2 and every second one has PCH equal to 1 and so on.
So if I do this, it should work.
No, that's actually going to do the same thing. So that's still, so run that. It's going to do the same thing and still just loop through your data set. So what it's doing, do me a favor, click on the iris data set up top and let's look at the data set and I'll show you what it's doing.
Yep.
So here, if we look at species, notice that the data set's been organized by species, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you set that equal to 0, 1, and 2, what it's doing is the first observation, it's going to give the 0 shape, the second one, the 1 shape, the third one, the 2 shape. And then your fourth one's going to be the 0 shape, 1 shape, 2 shape. And it's just going to rotate through. By setting color equal to iris $ species, what that does is it tells it, okay, when you go and you look at the data set, everything that has this species, I want you to make it a color, its own color. Everything that has the second species, make it its own color, and so on. The problem with the iris data set when it comes to the point shapes or the shapes is that since that factor, it's Versicolor, Verisota, and I forget the S one. Since it has those labeled as the species, it doesn't quite know what to do. But factors are weird in that they're character values that are stored as numbers. So if we use the as.numeric to convert it over, and that's actually, so the way that I fixed it did that, and the way that Kate did it, did something very similar. It converts that factor over to a number, and then R can work with it, and it knows, okay, every observation that has this number for species, I'm going to make the same shape, and so on. The difference between mine and Kate's solution is I allowed R to pick what numbers it would use for each of the species. Kate's solution is actually better than mine because what she was able to do was actually specify what shapes she wanted for each of the species. So hers is a little bit more sophisticated than the solution that I presented.
All right. I'll go back on the Zoom recording and get like the codes.
Yeah, and I can show them again. I was going to, before we go any further, because I realized some people haven't started on 4.1, so I was going to go ahead and bring that option up so that, if you haven't looked at this and you're not to this point, you can go work with Ron. And then for those of you that are, at this stage in 4.1 are ready for the lab, we can continue working. So
Cool.
Let me go ahead and do these breakout rooms.
So if we're still on the homework, we go with Ron.
Yes, if you're still, unless you've just got like 1 or 2 questions, then you can stay in here if you're almost done. But if you've still got quite a bit of work to do on 4.1, go ahead and go with Ron. And then for those of you who stay in here, we'll go ahead and get started on lab and I'll answer any, follow-up questions on that 4.1.
Sounds
Or
good.
4.2 for that matter. 4.2 is a quiz, so I don't think there'll probably be as many questions on the 4.2. All right. Did you all get the invite to go into the breakout room? Okay.
I didn't, and I'm still on the homework.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Brooke, I can just manually move you over.
Okay.
If anybody else wants to, just let me know. If you want to just put it in the chat, I can send anybody else over who wants to. All right, so everybody that's in here is ready to start on lab or just has 1 or 2 questions? All right, so let me bring up my screen that I had before with how to fix that so you can see that. All right, So here's the piece that I was talking about with the PCH. So this is where I was talking about, we've changed that iris species, which is a factor, changed it over to a number so that the PCH command can work with it. But again, this isn't as sophisticated as Kate's solution, because in this solution, I'm letting R choose which shapes to assign, whereas Kate's solution actually makes that, chose which shapes for the assignment. So it's a little bit of a better solution. More sophisticated, but better. All right, any other questions on the 4.1, or would you all like me to go ahead and start talking about the lab?
Maybe just how do you combine all of them and all of the histograms, like the last question?
Yeah, so that's going
That
to be,
code's a little confusing.
yeah, so that's going to be the very end of 4.1 script. It is this line of code right here. So it'll be this line you're just always going to copy over. And I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this for years, and I still sometimes forget I just did it earlier today, the order of this. I always know it's par MF row, but usually I just have to either Google it, or I know I've got it in another script and I'll go and copy it over. So what this is essentially doing, the important piece is this piece right here. What this does is this tells you the dimension of the grid that you want to create to put the plots in. So the first argument is going to be the number of rows. The second one is the number of columns. So what this is going to do is this is going to make a grid where I have 3 plots that are right on top of one another. If I wanted to do them side by side, then I would have 1, 3. So the rest of this piece, essentially all it's doing is it's telling R to set up that grid, and you'll always use that same syntax. The piece that you'll change will always be this piece, which changes the dimensions of the grid. Does that help?
Yes.
Any other questions before we look at lab? All right. So lab today is going to be, similar to what you did in 4.1 and 4.2. So the idea is in R, we can make plots using what are called the base functions. And so those are functions that are preloaded in R. You don't have to add anything extra. Or you could use what is called Ggplot. Now, Ggplot is located in a package, so you have to load that package to be able to use it. And it's a little bit more of a sophisticated way to make plots. Personally, if I need to just make a quick and dirty plot to look at some artifact of data, I will almost always use the base functions if I can, because I'm not looking to make it pretty. I'm just trying to see what's going on in the data. If I'm going to do something for a collaborator or publication, then I'm going to be more likely to use Ggplot. So that's kind of the difference there. Ggplot, I think, takes a little bit more work usually to get the plot, but the end result can be much better. So it just depends on what it is I'm trying to accomplish. If it's just a visualization for me to see what the data is doing, often use the base plots. If it's something that I need more sophisticated or I need to look nicer, I will often use Ggplot. So what we're going to do in this lab is I'm going to have you make a set of plots using the base functions. You're going to make those exact same plots making Ggplot, and then that'll be in the script. You'll then create a notebook that compares the plots from the base functions and Ggplot. So that way visually you can see, okay, this is what a histogram looks like in base. This is what a histogram looks like in Ggplot. Now, in Ggplot, we have just went over the basic structure of those commands. So I don't anticipate you to do anything, extravagant with the Ggplot pieces. I haven't even shown you how to add in a title and label the axes yet. We'll actually do that next week. So we really are looking at the most basic types of Ggplots to compare to the base functions. But that's the main goal for today, is for you all to at least have a visual comparison. And hopefully what you should see is whether you use the base function or you use Ggplot, if you just wanted to get a quick view of the data, the plots are pretty much, the information contained in the plots is going to be very similar between the two. It's just visually they're going to have some differences. All right, any questions about the lab If not, I'll sit back and let you get started on the lab.
Can I just go back to the lab? I was muted for a second.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
On 8, it did not assign the colors to each species.
Oh, you mean, are we going back to 4.1 or to the lab?
Oh, sorry, 4.1. No, we can do that after class whenever we're done.
Oh, no. Well, people are going to work on lab now, so we can go back to the 4.1. So for question number 8.
Yes. So when I ran the graph and do this, it doesn't assign a color to the species.
Yes, because you still have to edit the code. Within the plot call, do you have the color in there? See how you've still got that PCH in number 8? So remember, we want to take that piece out.
Oh, because that was already there, so that's what I thought. So I can just do like call.
Yeah, I think, give me just a second here. Yeah, I think what happened is you may have accidentally edited the original code that was there for number 8. If you open up the script again from Canvas, the line, yes, okay, that should work now, I think. Because the original line didn't have that PCH equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. It just had PCH equal to 20.
It's mad at me because I'm installing something. Okay.
Oh, okay. Are you doing the Ggplot or the?
Yeah, because I'm bouncing between like the office, my home, and my laptop on R. So I was just installing the tidyverse.
Gotcha. Yeah. So after tidyverse gets installed, try that. That should fix it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You're welcome.
What's the difference, or what exactly is R doing when you do like install.packages for library? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the install.packages is pulling the package from a repository to your computer, and the library is bringing that package forward to R so you can use it. It's kind of the difference there. Do you remember when you went to download R for the first time and you went to CRAN? So in that same place where you downloaded the R software, all of these packages live. So what happens is part of the installation for R is whenever you need to install these packages, R knows go back to that place to get the packages that, whatever packages you tell it to install. So the install basically brings it from CRAN over to your computer, and then the library brings it forward. So that's why typically when you're using these packages, the install only has to be done once on your computer. The library will usually have to be done each time you start a new session and you want to use the package. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And also, as you're working on the lab, so the section that's practice creating visualizations using base functions and visualizations using Ggplot, those can be in the same R script. You don't have to make 2 different R scripts for this. Those can all be in the same R script. And then also when you get to the bar chart, I give you a website to go look at. You could also, if you go ahead and look ahead and read through the whole document and read about the section on place plots in a notebook, I give you a pretty big hint down there as well.
So I'm trying to load the VCE package and it says that it's not available for our version 4.002. Can I just show you what I did and maybe I did it wrong?
Yeah, pull up. I'm guessing that you didn't do something wrong though. I'm trying to remember what version R is. I don't think it's Carbon. I think that's the new version.
So this is what I did.
Oh, I think it's at a capital V.
Capital V.
Let me double check that. No, that's right.
It still says warning.
So I think you did what I did. It's it should be VCD as in Delta, not E.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, that tripped me up for a while.
That
Oh,
worked.
yep.
Thank you.
Good eye. Thank you.
Actually, I do see.
Why would figure margins be too large when you try to make a histogram with age? What's going on there? You're on mute.
It's because in your R Studio, is your plotting window small in the bottom right-hand corner?
Yeah.
You just need to click and drag and make it bigger.
Okay.
Did that work, Shelley?
I'm still working on it. Yes, that worked. It's silly.
So I got, I'm trying to do the library now with the VCD extra to see the ICU data, and I can't get the library to work. It says there's no package installed with it, even though we just installed it.
Yeah, do you mind to pull it up for me?
Yeah, let me get that back pulled up. Share screen. Did it work?
Yes. It's because your V is capitalized. I think it's lowercase. Or no,
Okay.
hold on, no, that's not true. Sorry, give me a second here. Yeah, I think it's a lowercase V. Wait,
Okay, I'll put.
packages work. Yeah, try the lowercase V there.
Okay.
Yeah, keep your screen up.
We'll try lowercase v with both of them, I guess.
Yeah, try that for me.
Well, that worked.
Okay, try the library for me now.
I think it worked.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the ride, Charlie. I'm glad you're a neighbor, Charlie. You always take us where we want to go. Here's a sunflower for you. And I like how you.
Hey, Dr. Ellis.
I'm ready.
This isn't a coding question, but more of a data management question. Up in the environment of R, there's a little broom that says clear objects from workspace. And I think it's just me being organizationally inclined that I just want to clear it all. Is that okay?
Yes and no. It depends on what you want to do. So if
Okay.
you clear it all, anything that you've read in previously, you'll have to rerun it again.
Okay.
So that it's not going to hurt anything if you clear it. So that's actually one of the benefits to having these scripts is if you clear it all, you just rerun your script and it will load again. Now, I will say I clear mine usually whenever I start a new project. And the reason for that is I don't want to have an old variable stored in there that's going to
Right.
cause havoc later on. But just keep that in mind. If you run into an error and it tells you can't find this object, it's probably because when you cleared it out, you cleared out that object. So you just need to go back up in your script and reload that object in there.
Okay.
So I recommend doing that. And one thing that I don't think I've told you all before, but really I should have, is when you all close out RStudio, a little window will pop up that asks you if you want to save your workspace and if you want to save any of the files you haven't saved. Of course, any of the files that you haven't saved, you'll want to make sure that you save those. But I never save my workspace for that exact reason. Is because when I open R back up, I don't want there to be something old that I've read in there that's going to cause havoc with what I do forward. Anything
Right.
that was loaded in there, I can always get back because I've put it into my script so that I can do that. So that's one of the reasons I have you all add in like the set working directory, read in this data so that you can just go and read it right back in. So yes, so short answer is yes, I do use that and you should use that. Just keep in mind that you might have to reload something.
Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and just do that because I'm looking on this grand old environment and I see stuff from 603. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, please clear that. And then when it asks you to
gonna...
save your workspace when you close, tell it no. Every
Yeah.
time I open RStudio, I open with a blank slate. And again, it's because I don't want to be pulling in something old that I didn't need.
Yeah, I was looking at that and I saw state info in Nebraska 2018 data set. And so I was like, I think it's time to let go. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It is definitely time to let go. Oh, I just realized on the lab submission, it says submit the completed R script to Canvas. That should say R script and notebook. So I will update that.
Would you mind explaining what you're looking for in number 6?
Yeah, so, and this is under the using base functions, correct?
That's right.
So 2 of the variables in the data set are systolic, which is systolic blood pressure, and HRT, which is heart rate. So you're making a scatter plot of heart rate versus systolic blood pressure. Does that help?
I was confused. What do you mean by appropriate labels of systolic as a function of heart rate?
Oh, okay. So when you have systolic as a function of heart rate, that's the same thing as saying systolic blood pressure is the Y variable and heart rate is the X variable.
Oh, okay.
So with the appropriate labels, I just mean a title and then label your X and Y axis.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm having a problem installing the VCD Extra package.
Yeah, do you mind to pull it up?
I have the desktop, so
Oh, that's right. So
Yeah.
my guess is let's first make sure that the capitalization is right. Do you have lowercase v, lowercase c, lowercase d, and then it's capital E, and then everything else is lowercase?
Yep.
And then, so you did the install, is it with the installing the package or the library?
I did install .packages.
Let's do, since I can't see the line, my guess is it's probably just something off there. Let's do the other way to install the packages. Let me share my screen and you can follow along.
Okay.
So the other way to install packages is if you go up to Tools and then Install Packages. And then,
And just type it in.
yeah, you can just type it in. It is going to be case sensitive, but you should see it pop up after you do a couple letters.
Okay. Oh,
And then click Install. And then if that doesn't work, let me know.
okay. It says that it installed. So then another issue that I wanted to look at the data. So I did like data VCD extra. And when I ran that line, it again says the data set is not found.
That's because, so VCD Extra is the name of the package. ICU is the name of the data set that's located inside of that package. You
Okay.
have to call the name of the data set, not the name of the package.
Gotcha.
And that package has to be loaded before you'll be able to call that data set. So make sure when you load that package, because you've got to do the install.packages line, and then make sure you also do the library line afterwards. So it's always a two-step process.
Gotcha. And then library, I would put ICU in, or I would put the VCD.
I'm sorry, ask me that one more time.
Inside the library function, would I put the ICU or?
You'll do VCD because the line, so that's still calling the package forward so you can use the package.
Okay.
So for 5, you've got the same hint as for 4. Are you just trying to say that both bar and pie charts need the table?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a typo. That should say for a pie chart, you'll need to create a table first similar to the bar chart.
Okay, just double checking.
Yep, and it's, yeah, you'll find it's very, very similar to the bar chart.
Okay, no problem.
For number 7, do you want us to make a legend for that?
It would be good practice too, but since I didn't explicitly ask for it, you don't have to have it in there, but it'll be good practice. Now I will say you'll find with the Ggplot, depending on how you specify the aesthetics, and I talk more about this next week, but Ggplot will automatically make the legends for you. So that is one of the benefits to Ggplot.
Okay. So I did try it, and it without Ggplot, just the regular base function.
Yeah.
And it's telling me that legend is of length 0.
Oh, do you mind to pull up your screen? We'll take a look.
Sure. Sorry, I'm trying to find the button. Okay. It was right in the middle. Okay. Can you see that?
I can.
Okay. So I just kind of copied and pasted from the
yeah, and that should work. So let's see. Plot. Give me just a second. Is because it doesn't like the legend names, I think is the problem. Do me a favor, in the upper right hand corner, toggle down the little arrow button that's next to the ICU data set. So the little blue area, yeah. All right, so here, services, risk factors, medical surgical, that's right. In your actual script, where you've got unique, open it, yeah. Just highlight the unique function with ICU $ service inside of it and run that by itself for me. Yeah, perfect. I just want to see what that looks like. All right, it doesn't.
Oh, you know what? I think it's because that's capitalized.
That's exactly what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna try it and see if that did it. Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll tell you what, sometimes those capitals, I mean, it's just so hard to see that.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So number 5 with the pie chart, are we still using the counts function from number 4? We're not changing that at all.
Nope, you don't have to change it at all.
Okay.
So for Ggplot, I got my first plot, but I don't know really what I did. So
Yeah.
can you
And this is why I'm having you all make these this way. So in that 4.2, I mean, you're basically just copying over the code because, like I said, Ggplot is more it's more complicated than the base functions to figure out what's going on here. So anytime you make a Ggplot, okay, so you made yours a little bit different than I did in the 4.2 script. Yours is actually just a little bit more complex than what I did, the way you've got set up, but it's perfectly fine. So whenever you make a Ggplot, there's really 3 basic pieces. There's the Ggplot function, which you called there first. So the Ggplot function, really all that's doing is making a blank plot. So for example, do me a favor and just highlight the Ggplot function with all of the arguments in it. So don't highlight the assignment piece. Perfect, but not the, yeah, now run that for me. Okay, so notice all that did was make a blank plot. So the Ggplot, the first piece is, it just does that. Now, so you start with that blank piece, and then essentially what you're doing when you create Ggplots is you are placing layers on top of each other. So each thing you add on is going to be a new layer. So you always start with kind of this blank plot, and then you're going to add on a layer that says the type of plot you want. And so that's what the geom functions are doing. So notice you've got geom histogram. So that's going to essentially just lay on a histogram layer is what that's going to do. Now, the way that you've written this is, so what you've done is you've assigned the object to G to be the blank plot. And then your next line down, which is a separate, completely separate line of code, you're saying take the blank plot G that I made and add on the histogram layer.
Okay. So,
And then the last piece is that aesthetic or the mapping piece. And so the mapping piece is where you're telling, you know, whatever plotting layer, so in this case, the histogram layer, it's telling it what you want to do with that data. So for example, if you don't mind, let me share my screen and I'll show you. So let me bring up my 4.2 script. All right, so here's the 4.2 script. So this is I'm doing it here with the orange data set, but it's very similar to what you did. But here I've simplified it just a little bit. So the difference in yours is you created an object G, set it equal to Ggplot, and then added on the geom histogram. Here, I'm not assigning it as an object. There are benefits to assigning it as an object, and we can talk about that later, but this is just like your most basic case. So here I'm creating the blank layer just like you did. And then this time I'm making a scatter plot, so I'm using the geom point function. And so I'm adding on a scatter plot layer. You added on a histogram layer. And then the last piece, and so in yours, notice that you just have the aesthetic, you don't have mapping equal to. That's perfectly fine, because in R, as long as you're careful with how you assign the arguments inside of a function, you don't actually have to include the argument name. Here, I've just done it to be as clear as possible, but the last piece you need is this mapping that goes inside of your geom function. And so essentially what the mapping piece is doing is it's telling you, okay, I'm going to make this layer. Here's the variable I want you to use to make this layer. So for a scatter plot, for example, we know we need an X and a Y variable. So that's why I've got X equals age, Y equals circumference. In your case, you're making a histogram, so you just need an X variable. So in your mapping piece, you just have the variable you want to make the histogram from. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's, like I said, the Ggplots are definitely more complicated, but if you can get used to the basic structure of those three pieces, then, so next week, we're going to exclusively work with Ggplot and see how to do more complicated things with it. It'll make more sense how to tack in those extra pieces if you can get really comfortable with these three main things that you have to have.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Do you want us to add the numbers on the pie chart as well, or just like?
If you just make a basic pie chart, I'll be happy.
Good.
Yep. So this week is really just about, can we get some basic plots out there? We're going to spend a lot more time on how to make the plots pretty and more informative. All right, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab some coffee, but I promise I'll be right back.
Okay, so while she's gone, I guess I'm just going to ask everyone else what they did. So for number 6, did you guys, for the scatter plot, do systolic on one axis and then Hertree on another?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't think it matters which one you do it, but systolic was on the x-axis for me, and her was on the y.
Okay.
Yeah, so whenever we say sorry, let me go back to this part in the lab. Okay, so whenever we say systolic as a function of heart rate, that has a specific meaning. And so what that means is systolic is the Y variable and heart rate is the X.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so often in scatter plots, you will see that in publications as titles. You will see your Y variable as a function of the X variable. And so that is the same thing as saying is that your Y variable depends on what's happening in your X variable.
Okay, my computer does not seem to be able to find Ggplot, and I have installed and installed and installed. I don't know why it won't find Ggplot. You are on mute.
Sorry, Shelly, do you mind to bring up your screen? And then also just to double check,
Yeah.
you are installing the tidyverse package, correct?
I have installed it several times. I don't know why it's not. I've had this a couple times today, and I don't really get it.
And you're calling the library after you do the installation?
I think so. Okay, so wait, up here. So I have library, VD extra, data. There we go. There's that. Okay, so let me go library. Ggplot, or this one?
You can do Ggplot too. I was actually having you all do the tidyverse instead, and Ggplot is part of the tidyverse. And the reason for that is we'll use more of the tidyverse later on.
Tidyverse. Okay, let me run that and see why it's not running. Okay, so then my code is probably wrong too, but
Yeah, your code looks pretty good.
oh, something's going on right now.
It's calling the tidyverse. It hadn't been pulled forward yet.
Oh, so maybe now it might run?
It should.
Totally errored.
Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know what I did wrong.
Oh, it's because you've got ICU equals aesthetic. That's that argument is called mapping.
So it just needs to be ICU?
No. Where you have ICU, that needs to say mapping. Yeah, there you go. And then I think that should run. There you go.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so that word mapping is always going to be in there because that is the name of the argument inside of that function. So that the word mapping is not dependent on the data set. That's a piece of the function.
I'm pretty stuck still on just making a legend for number 7. Is there any way I can just,
Yeah, you want to share your screen? We look at it together.
yeah, let me try to figure that out. So I was trying to, I don't know what I was trying to copy what you had in 4.1.
Yeah, so I would actually, so this is going to be more like the iris data set. And the reason for that is up in the upper right hand corner, click on ICU for me. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant, I said that wrong. Click on the little arrow next to ICU, I should have said. Okay, so if you scroll down to service, yes, okay, so see how factor, or probably service is a factor with 2 levels, medical and surgical. So they're words, right? That's going to be very similar to when we worked with the iris data set. The other thing to notice that's different than the orange data set is if you look at surgical in the actual data set over on the left, see how they're not ordered by service. You know, medical, surgical, medical, surgical. So really, this is going to be more similar to the ICU or the iris data set than the orange data set. So in the 4.1 practice problems, I gave you all that code that all you had to do was edit it. I would actually start with that code for this data set, and it's going to be a little bit easier on you.
Cool.
And if
Thank
that
you.
doesn't work, let me know and we'll look at it together again. But I think that's going to be an easier fix.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so as a general, I do not understand Ggplot. Like, what is it supposed to be?
So let me share my screen. All right. So Ggplot, you know, just like your base functions, it's a way to make plots. But Ggplots are always going to have 3 separate things. So they're going to start out with this piece right here. And so you're going to call the Ggplot function, and inside of it, and we'll learn later on, there's other things you can add. But for right now, we're just telling it what data set we're using. If we run this, oh, hold on. I don't have it.
So this would be Ggplot data equals ICU.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so all that piece does, if we run this on mine, is it makes a blank plot. So that's all it did. Just made
And, okay, and then the second line's putting the points.
exactly.
Okay.
Well, see, I don't know. Y'all might be too young. When you were in like elementary school, did they ever bring out that overhead projector and have like those transparency sheets? Do y'all remember those?
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what Ggplot is. You can think of it as it's putting a whole bunch of transparent layers on top of each other, and those layers are what are building the plot. So the very first layer that you have to put down is the blank plot. The next layer, that's what tells it what kind of plot you want to make. So for example, a geom point that I have here is going to make a scatter plot. A geom histogram is going to make a histogram. So it's just telling you what kind. So that places the next layer. But in order to place that layer, you have to tell it what variables to create that layer with. And that's what the third piece, which is the mapping piece, does. So for this layer, I'm making a scatter plot. So I have to tell it an X and a Y variable. For a histogram, you're only plotting an X variable. So you just have to give it an X variable in here.
Okay.
And so then, and that's why you've got the plus sign here. So essentially what this is saying is make the blank layer, add on the next layer, which in my case is the scatter plot, but in yours for the first one will be a histogram. So see, then it laid that layer on top. And you can do more layers than that. Like maybe, so I don't know if you've had a regression course, maybe, you know, you're making this plot and then you wanted a regression line to go through these points. You could add on a third layer, which would be a line that's the regression line. So you can keep on layering onto these is essentially what you're doing. And you could see that with some of home to get my weeks confused here. No, I think we do it next week. Depending on the order that you make the layers, like as we add in colors, you'll notice that if you're not careful with your layering, your color will get trapped underneath one of the other layers. So just think of it as you're constantly laying transparency sheets on top of one another and building these plots up. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. I just got.
You got an error?
Yeah. So it says requires the following. So it says that I'm missing the Y aesthetic.
Did you use the geom histogram or the geom point?
I put point.
Yep. If you change it to histogram, it should work fine.
So with the
Sorry, you go.
So with the histogram, it says it would like me to pick a better bin width. Do we need to do that, or?
Don't worry about that for now. That all that is the bin width is the width of the bars. So for yours, did you specify a bin width in yours? Like, did you or did you?
I didn't have any bin width. I just left it.
Okay. It's just saying if you just let it go to the default, that there's probably better choices, is all that's saying. So you can ignore that. Because really the whole point of this exercise is just to get some different Ggplots and compare them to the base ones. We'll learn later on how to tweak those things. Brooke, did you have another question?
Yeah, so my histogram came up as just like one big gray blob. Do you want us to change it so that there's like better graphics?
Yours shouldn't come up as that. I don't think it should just be one blob.
Yeah.
Can you just, oh, okay, that'll work too. I was going to say, or if you just type in the chat what that line of code is.
Okay, yeah.
Give me just a moment. I'm gonna put it on my computer and then we can look at it together.
Quick question. For the pie chart, do we have to use geom or can we just use pi?
So it depends on which part you're working on. So in the second part of the lab, you have to use Ggplot for all of those. So you'll have to use geom pi, whereas just the regular pi function, you don't want to use any of the base functions for the second one. So the second set of plots should all be made using Ggplot.
Okay, I'm looking for the geom and I can't find it. So is it geom_pi?
I'm pretty sure it is. If that doesn't work, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
It should be, so if you haven't done so already, so the section 4.2 quiz, in there, part of that quiz is there's a link that takes you to a page that has all of those different geoms on it.
I couldn't find the pi one, and when I looked it up, it said one doesn't exist, and you have to just make like a bar plot, but like make it polar.
All right, sorry. Did I give you all an impossible task? I wouldn't put it past me.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah, give me just
geom_pi.
Give me 2 seconds to look at that. Sorry, I've got him barking and about that. All right. Oh, okay. Yep. I will edit the lab. Just take the pi out of the Ggplot. I apologize for that. I forgot that there wasn't. You're right. You have to actually do something. Yeah, you have to add in an additional layer, a coordinate layer. So just take the pie chart out of the Ggplot section. Still do it for the base. And then when you get down to the R notebook, you don't have to include that comparison, if that makes sense. And I'll edit the lab and post that. And I will, when I make that edit, just so you know, that it'll change the number of points for this assignment, because it'll reduce it by, what is it, 3 points, because I'll take that number 3 off of the practice part. And then Brooke, I'm looking at your code right now. Brooke, is this not the histogram you're getting?
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Sorry, I thought you meant you were getting one bar that was like all the same height.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's just like a big gray.
Yeah, so really what's going on here, these are all separate bars. So notice like this is a bar and this is a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this
I
is
just wasn't sure if
perfectly
you
fine.
wanted something a little nicer.
Nope, this is perfectly fine. We can work with this later to make it look better. Now, one thing to keep in mind though, with histograms, you'll often get something that looks like this though, because the bars do touch. But one thing that we can add in is we could actually outline the bars if we wanted to do that, and then have the gray fill in. But we'll talk about stuff like that later. But if you get this, is exactly what you're looking for that histogram.
Okay.
Can you, excuse me, can you help me with my bar chart in Ggplot? I am
Yeah.
quite lost.
Are you using the Geom bar?
Yes. I'm confused what goes in.
Yes. So for this one, okay, so for this Ggplot, you don't actually want that mapping piece in the Ggplot call. So in the Ggplot, let's just get, and I do apologize for him, I don't know what he's barking at. We just want to have the data call inside of Ggplot. So kind of like you do above, yeah. And then you want to get rid of that comma. And then in the Geom bar, the only thing you actually have to feed it is the variable that you're looking for. So here we just have to do x equals, and then you're making one of race, and that's it. So this is one of the benefits, and we'll talk about this next time, is, I think the name of the variable, something other than race. If you click the arrow next to your ICU data set up top.
Does it have to be in quotations?
Shouldn't. Data equals ICU plus bar. Oh, sorry. You have to have the AES around the x equals race. Yep, that was my bad. And then close off your parenthesis. There you go. That should work now.
Oh, thank you.
So one of the nice things about Ggplot compared to the base functions, again, we'll talk about this next time. In order to make a bar plot using the base functions, is you all had to use table, and you basically had to come up with the counts. That is already embedded in geombar. So it's smart enough to go and do that as part of that layer. And so we'll look more at that next time, how that actually works. And you can actually manipulate those pieces to do different things.
So mine's still not working for the bar chart after just looking at his. Can I show you and see?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I have the mapping equals AESX, and I have
You're missing the
geombar.
parentheses at the end.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
Try that now. If that doesn't work, let me know.
Okay.
Do you want us labeling our axes for the Ggplot part of this lab?
No, because I haven't shown you how to do that yet. You'll actually see that next week, how to label and how to put titles on.
Okay.
So do we only get 1 point on the plot when you do number 4? So I only have 1 point on my graph.
No, you should get a plot that looks a lot like number 4 from the one up above. Do you mind bring up your code and we'll look at it?
So I'm missing something in here.
Oh, take them out of quotations. So it knows that systolic is going to be one of the variables from the ICU data set where you start the call with the ICU data set, so you don't have to have those quotations. That should work now.
Okay. Okay, so now I just have to do that again and put color in. Or yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. It is getting better. Sort of.
Time. It just takes a lot of time. Eventually, honestly, it's just like learning a language, and it just takes exposure and time. And as frustrating as it is, the more you struggle and the more mistakes you make now, you'll remember those mistakes later on, and you'll actually learn it faster by doing that. I know it doesn't seem that way, but I promise it is.
I've been like struggling. I think especially like on the histogram, it took me like a while to understand the Ggplot and like how to set it. And it went like back and forth with the lecture. And is this like how it's supposed to look like, more or less, the code and the graph?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So notice you've got those 3 main pieces that we talked about.
Yes.
You've got your first one, which tells it what data set to use. The second one, which tells it what type of plot. And then the third piece is what variable to use for that plot. So that looks great.
So what does like the mapping and the like AES does?
So what that is doing is that's essentially telling it what variables to make that plot with and what to do with those variables is a way to think of it. And so what you put into that mapping is going to depend a little bit on the type of plot you make. For example, here you're making a histogram. So a histogram is a way to summarize a
Here's I'm on my last question.
Oh, sorry, say again. Oh, sorry, you weren't telling me, Kate.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So when you make a histogram, that's a univariate plot. You just need a single variable. So that's why here in the aesthetic, you've just got age. And if you want to make that just a little bit easier to read for yourself, you can actually put x equals age, and that'll remind you is, okay, I've only got a single variable x when I make a histogram. That's the variable I'm using. Now, in contrast, if you wanted to make, let's say, a scatter plot, which would be the G-on-point function, scatter plots take two variables, X and Y. So in that aesthetic, you need to specify an X and a Y.
So,
And then let's say maybe you wanted to go even further and have your points based, the color of your points based on another variable. You could also put that information in there. So all that mapping, what it's telling you, one way to think of it is it's saying, how do you map the variables to the plot? What goes where and what is, you know, what is summarized here? If that, does that kind of help some?
yeah, can I still do like this, like ICU, $, or would like get mad somehow?
Try it. I actually don't know. I'm not sure if it'll let you or not. I know it is redundant, and the reason it's redundant is your first line, by having that ggplot data equals ICU, you're telling it for everything that I do here, I'm going to use the ICU data set.
Yeah.
But it might work. Okay, yeah, it just says it's discouraged.
Okay. Yeah, because it, I don't know. It's nice to have the drop down menu, I guess.
Yeah, so I like the drop down menu too, so that I don't, you know, mess up my capitalization or spelling, which I'm terrible at. But you could always use the drop down and then just delete out the $sign with the data set name if you wanted to.
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I actually do have a question now. Sorry about earlier.
Oh,
I've
no,
been
you're fine.
running around. I'm trying to do the color for the service,
Mhm.
and it says that the object is not found.
Yeah, do you mind to pull it up?
Yeah, let me do the share screen. Share screen. Okay, so I have my line, and then I did color equals service at the end.
So here, you actually want to have that inside of the AES piece. And the reason for that is color for these points is going to be based on service. It's not all points having the same color. And then the other thing is, do you mind to open your environment? You're welcome, Daniel. Have a great day. Do you mind
Yeah.
opening your environment? I just want to make sure service isn't capitalized, is it?
Let me try to figure out how to do that.
Oh yeah, it's let me move my window so I can see.
I got the
Windows
little,
environment.
like,
Yeah, if you go over to the right, there's the little Windows buttons. Yeah.
oh yeah. The problem was the little Zoom icon was right over it. So.
That's what it was. Yeah, I hate that sometimes. I'm always like trying to maneuver everything so I can see. And
so here's my environment.
you haven't read the ICU data set in. Is what's wrong?
Okay, so go back up. I guess I can just write that anywhere.
Yeah, it should be up at the top though. I don't know why it got.
I did run it in here.
Oh, you've got to put data. You got to use the data function. So
Okay.
data, yeah, try that.
Like that.
Run that for me. Okay, and then now next time, whenever you use the ICU data set, it'll fill it in.
Cool. Can't believe I made it to the end without doing that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. My guess is somehow it got taken out because obviously, I mean, you would have had to have it to make the other plots.
I did all the other ones. So
there you go. That looks nice.
Okay.
And see how Ggplot automatically puts that legend in for you? That's a really nice thing that it does.
Cool. So the next thing is just to make the comparison with the.
Yep. So you'll just make it. So your script's done. Now you'll just make a notebook. And then for your notebook, I've given you some instructions there on how to format it. And basically all your notebook is going to do is you're going to introduce the ICU data set, and then you're going to compare, we're taking out the pie chart. So you're going to compare 4 different plots. And so that way you'll have a nice kind of visual that you'll see that the same information is summarized between them, but the plots do visually look different from the 2 different ways to make the plots. And I've got that example down there for you so you can kind of see how to organize it on the bar plots. Oh, hi.
Hi, it's fine, James. I might have to do that later. George says hi. Today's his birthday and school's closed.
Happy birthday. I like his fox.
Thank you.
Aww. What a cutie. So you said, is he 1 today?
Yes, he turned 1 today.
Oh my goodness. Oh my.
Normally he's at daycare but daycare is closed because snow. So
Yeah, I was actually surprised that UK's campus was open today. So yeah, the roads look pretty empty.
say bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I have to do my script later. He's done playing by himself.
Just no, you're fine. If you need anything or help with it, let me know. And then just so everybody knows, I'll post it as well. But I'll also have office hours again on Monday as well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Professor Ellis,
Mhm.
more question. In the notebook part of the lab, you do your plots for the coma variable. Do we also need to do the coma variable?
No. I just did that for illustration,
Okay.
so you can see formatting. For URLs, you'll do the same ones that you already did in the script. So for this notebook, you shouldn't have to write any new R code. You should be able to take all of your R code from your script. So really, what you're going to be practicing in the notebook is going to be the formatting and the notebook pieces.
Okay, cool. That's what I did.
Professor Ellis, for the notebook, I've been kind of stuck on the ICU data section.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to include code-wise, but I tried to include like data view, and now it's messing up the whole thing. So I can't knit the document anymore.
Yeah. So for that ICU data set, you actually pretty much just need what I've got there code-wise, which is just the library for the VCD extra. And this is something with notebooks to be aware of. A lot of times you will have to call the library call inside of the R notebook, otherwise it won't work. And as well as that data call. So that your ICU data section will pretty much be the exact same what I have there in the example. The only difference is where I say written description of the ICU data set, I'd like you to just write a couple sentences about that data set based off of where you already read about the data set, if that makes sense. But don't worry about including, any pieces of the actual data, because it's going to be really big and long, and we don't need all that. The code wise, you can just have those pieces. Does that
So for the ICU data set, you don't want us to do like the hashtag loading required package.
Oh, that's going to automatically appear in your document when you include the library piece. So when you look at, actually, hold on, let me do something.
So in the notebook, you want us to do the library VCD extra, and that's not going to be a chunk, right?
It will be. So I'll show you. I'm actually going to show you what mine looks like. So here's my version of where I typed up your lab. So notice here to get that header ICU data set, I've done the hashtag ICU data set. Here's where you'll put in a written description, so a couple sentences about the data set. Now, to do the library and the data, that does need to be in a chunk. And the reason for this is whenever you go to compile your R notebook, they can get kind of particular. So even if you've already got the data set loaded in your global environment, that doesn't mean that when the notebook compiles that it can access it. So you'll actually want to have in a chunk the library statement and the data. So essentially what you're doing is you're telling the notebook is, hey, I'm going to use this package and I'm going to use this data set. And then you'll notice down here, when I go to do the geom bar, I've actually called the library. I did Ggplot too here. You could do tidyverse. It doesn't make a difference. But I've included that there because otherwise it's going to tell me I can't use the Ggplot even though I have it loaded in my R Studio. You need to do it again for the R notebook. Does that make sense?
Do you just do it the once, or do you have to do it every time you're doing the GM section?
Just the once, because it'll consider everything within that. The notebook can read from chunk to chunk, if that makes sense. So just the one time will be enough.
Can you show that Ggplot 2 part again?
Yeah, and it's in the PDF as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet, but
yeah, so all
okay,
of this, it's down in the PDF as well. So you've got those example chunks.
Okay.
But does everybody see here? This is how I got those headers. So there's a header because it's got that in front, and then if you do 2, it'll do the subheader for you.
Wait, sorry, I think you just covered this, but am I supposed to do library tidyverse or library ggplot too?
It won't make a difference. So I did
Okay.
Ggplot too, I think just out of habit. For you all, I was having you do the tidyverse just because we're going to use other things that are in tidyverse later on. It won't make a difference. If it gives you an error with the Ggplot too, you might have to, I don't even think you have to. You might have to separately install Ggplot too, but I think since you've all installed tidyverse, that should work just as well.
So the bar chart's gonna look almost like a histogram.
Yes. So bar charts and histograms are very similar to
Yeah.
one another.
They just got like more less condensed.
Oh, wait a minute. The bar chart should be for the age, for the race variable, not age.
That's I can't read today. Grad students are not sleeping.
There you go. That should look a little more reasonable now.
I was like, this doesn't look right.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And using the hashtags for the headers and subheaders, do you have to have like a hashtag then a space? Because I think I had written them hashtag no space and it wasn't giving me the header when I knitted.
I think you're right. I think you have to have the space. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that you do have to have the space there, because otherwise, I think the way that it's reading it, in the background, so it's using what's called pandoc. Without the space, it's seeing it as a full character. I'm not using terminology right here, but a full character string where it's seeing like hashtag, and then whatever text you have. So it doesn't recognize that as a command. Whereas if you put the space in there, it recognizes it as like its own separate command, if that makes sense.
I can't seem to get mine to knit.
Yeah, do you mind to pull it up?
It won't knit to Word or anything. I don't know why. Actually, I'm gonna delete that.
Oh, okay. So you don't have your chunks done correctly. So remember at the top of your chunk, you've got those characters, but then you've got curly bracket with R inside of it at the top of the chunk.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And then you'll do that for the rest of them. And then one thing that I would recommend in the future is every time you write a chunk, go ahead and compile it, because it'll make it easier for you to troubleshoot, because you'll know what's new.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier. Whenever you go to use Ggplot, you'll have to include the library statement.
not even. I don't even know what just happened.
Yeah, so it's because you don't have the library statement. So if you look at in the lab instructions down at, so if you look at
So I
my,
need this one.
yes. Yes, and yes, exactly.
But we're not supposed to put the histogram in there.
Well, no, you just need the piece with the library so that it knows where to find Ggplot.
That one.
Mhm.
It's totally nitty. It's not even going to Word though. That's the weird thing. It's going to, it's pulling up my internet.
It's because in your drop down for your knit, yeah, so it's creating an HTML. Next to knit up at the top, select your drop down for me. Yeah.
No.
No, oh, I think it's still thinking. There it goes. Click on the knit to Word for me. I think it was defaulting to the knit to HTML. So the first time whenever you run a
Nope.
notebook, you'll want to click on the knit to Word.
It's still clicking on that HTML, which is weird.
Within the HTML. Scroll up to the top of your file for me.
I have to let it wait. Come on, computer door. Okay, what is going on?
Okay, so it's because when you created this file, up at the top, you've deleted out the, hold on, let me, do you mind to let me share?
What? Okay, stop.
Yeah, so that I can share screen. All right, so when you go to create a new notebook, so if we do file, new file, our notebook, you can't get rid of these pieces up here. This piece tells you what kind of output to make. So notice when I come up here and I click on knit to Word, cancel here, it adds in a new piece here. But since yours are deleted out, it's automatically making the HTML.
Okay, I'll put those back in there. Alrighty.
See you later, Kate.
I cannot find like a specific something for like a pie chart in the geom comment.
Oh, sorry, you missed that. Don't worry about that. I'm going to actually take that piece out. I'll make an announcement. So make the pie chart using the base functions, but don't make the pie chart using Ggplot. And I will correct that and take those points out. And so when you go to make your notebook, you don't have to do the pie chart comparison. That was my fault. Yeah, you can make pie charts, but it requires a third layer. And so we'll talk about how to add in multiple layers more next week.
Okay.
Laura, I haven't heard from you today. How are you doing? Is everything going okay?
Oh yeah, I'm here a little longer than usual because my chickens had a chicken emergency.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Should I ask what a chicken emergency is? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little intrigued.
Yeah, so they have a this cover on top of their run, and with the repeated freeze thaw, it finally just fell down.
No.
So I had to go make sure that none of my chickens were under it. They weren't. They were fine, but
These backyard chickens are real chickens, like in the lab.
Backyard chickens.
Oh, that's so funny. All right, everybody have a good, safe rest of your day. I'll see you later.
Have a great weekend, Shelly. If you have any more questions, let me know.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, like some days I want backyard chickens because I want fresh eggs, but I also grew up on a farm and really don't ever want to do farm work again, so I'm always torn.
Oh, they're so much fun.
I don't know. I've had some bad chicken experiences. Farm work was not a. There's a reason I'm in academia and not a farmer. Not my cup of tea. I have friends that have them though, and they're pretty much like their pets. Like they love them to pieces.
That's how mine are. I raised them from babies and they love me. I mean, they love me as much as a bird can love anyone, I guess. But
that's how theirs are. And like they're funny because like their dogs get along with them. And yeah, I mean they're neat. Like the kinds that they have like blue eggs and like kind of pink eggs, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know, they're neat.
yeah, I have some who lay blue eggs.
They're so pretty.
They are. They're a lot of fun. I think I'm good. Thank you.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
one.
If you have any questions, let me know. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
I just noticed all of your cattle crossing and cows in the background. Are you on a farm?
No, I'm on campus.
Oh, okay.
It's just like we work with cows, and there's like
Oh, gotcha.
there's like GERT up there.
I can't say what GERT is. What is GERT?
It's a head.
Oh, I see it now. I see it now. It's the side, the profile.
It's a skull. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I grew up on a farm, so I've done a
On
lot.
a dairy farm.
No, beef cattle. It was a
Oh.
small farm, but we did like we would herd them and give them their shots and all that kind of stuff. So
That's the reason I don't sleep. The
Yeah.
cows.
I can understand that. I can.
Yeah, I'm doing. Well, I'm like a PhD in dairy science, so we work a lot with like technology, pretty much like Fitbits for cows.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We do like a lot of modeling, just like to try to develop algorithms to see if they're like in heat or if they're like sick or anything like that. And I'm looking into like a lot of feeding behavior, so there's like a ton of modeling involved in that. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to get more to R, because it's better on machine learning than SAS
Definitely
is.
Definitely is. No, I had a friend who did our undergraduate over in ag, and she worked with I guess you all still have them over there. Someone in ag does. The cows that have the holes in their stomach where you put your hand through, like
Yeah.
yeah. I remember her doing that when we were in undergrad, and I just thought that was the craziest thing.
It's pretty warm.
I would say so.
We did like a field day every day with like every year with the 4-H kids where we let them like put their hands inside. It was just like the highlight of their day.
That's hilarious. Yeah, my experience with cattle is more like like I said, giving them shots, being covered in manure all day long, doing hay because we would do all of the hay, so we would do square bales and putting all of them in the barn. And just really hard, grueling work was most of my experience when it came to cows.
Dr. Ellis. Wait, sorry, are you hearing me?
Oh no, I am. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, that's my volume is messed up. I'm having an issue with my notebook. Can I just share screen to show you? Because I don't know how to.
So that's usually the easiest way to fix it. Oh, and you actually don't have to put the pie chart in there since we don't have a base plot or a Ggplot pie to compare.
Well, I can take it out, but that's not really the specific thing I'm having an issue with. It's these subheaders. So you can see I've got the header and the subheader here, and then I have the chart. But then for all my sections, the next header just, it's like this.
Yeah, do you mind
and if I can,
I think it might just be a space.
yeah.
Overall, it's looking good though.
Thank you. I might have to, I'm not good with Zoom so much.
Oh, you're fine. Let's see. So where's one of the ones?
So this would be an example of like it following the code.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna suggest adding a space, but it looks like you've already got two there. Hold on a second. Let me pull up mine because I did not have that issue. Oh, so I'm gonna guess that one that starts with comparison of histograms and using the base function hist that you've got there up at the top. If that is one of the ones that had a problem, put a blank or like a space in between the code chunk and that header, and that might fix it.
Okay, I don't think it was, but I'm gonna just do that just in case.
Yeah, and let me look at mine. So like when I look at mine, I did spaces after my code chunk, and I didn't have that issue. So that's why that's my guess. But let's see if it fixes it. If it doesn't,
okay. Yeah, honestly, I just knitted it again, and it looks like it's showing up correctly this time. I don't know why that happens, but
you know, knitting stuff is weird, and I don't know if this was the issue, but if you all ever get to where you're doing LaTeX documents and you have to put in citations, I swear for some reason, whenever I do citations, the first time I run it, it doesn't work. Like without fail, it never works. I make no changes. I run it again and it works fine. Like sometimes it just takes that first iteration and then the second time it works. I should know why, but I have no idea why. So when all else fails, knit again. And then if it's still not fixed, troubleshoot then. Very technical advice you're getting today.
And are we supposed to add any other comments or just have our headers and subheaders and graphs and everything?
Just headers, subheaders, and graphs. And then I don't think, let me double check here what I have in here. You want to make sure that you comment on the data set. So the ICU data set should have like, you know, that 2-sentence written description.
Yeah.
And then other than that, that's the only written piece you need.
Okay, cool.
My notebook got like mad.
Yeah, let's look at it.
It doesn't even look like a notebook anymore. It created something else when I tried to knit it. And it gave yeah, it gave me this error.
Oh, it's because maybe. Yeah, I think if you go up and look at the file name, scroll over that one. Yeah, see, it saved it as a .r file for some reason, not a .rmd.
Yeah, because when I like went to export, let me create a new notebook.
Yeah, let's just make a new one and copy this over. Yeah, I'm not sure why it did that.
So I'm gonna try again.
It should knit now. Let's try it and see what it does.
It's supposed to be knitted, but it didn't.
Yeah, for some reason
It created like a weird file. I'm like, let's try knitting again.
All right, I think I'm all good. Thank you.
Have a
See
great
you
weekend.
Bye. It's not knitting.
Yeah, try click on the down next to the knit again.
Oh,
there it goes. Oh, it's just being slow. It just had to think.
I think it knitted. Are you gonna teach any like? Is this gonna be like a every semester kind of course, or just like the spring and then?
I hope it's going to be every semester. I would love for this to be every semester. When this was the first time it was offered, we had no idea what to expect in terms of enrollment. So I originally had 6 people in the class, and we were really excited about that because again, it had never been offered before. We didn't know what to expect. So we've got 23, 24 people right now. So I'm hopeful we can do it every week or every week, every semester. We can offer the course. So, but it'll just depend on student demand.
That's neat. Are you gonna like do like an advanced DAR or something like that, or
Maybe in the future. I mean, it's not in the works for right now because we've got so many other things going on. But I would love to have that in the future. The only problem is once you get the more advanced stuff, you really have to start tying it with different analyses. And so for this class, especially this first time, since we're offering it as a special topics, there's no prerequisite on it. So it makes it a little bit hard because I can't even really assume that people have had intro stats. Now I'm kind of doing that because I'm like, I'm gonna make a histogram and a bar graph. But for some of the more, complicated things people might want to see, I've got to be careful how I present it because people may have not had it before. So for example, like regression, there's stuff that we could do with regression, but people haven't had a regression course. So that an advanced one will be a little bit trickier, and I'll probably have to, if we do an advanced one, we'll probably have to tie it with some type of, some other content, in other words, some of the analyses and things. So for example, like you were talking about model building. Well, if we teach model building in our course, I've also got to teach how to do model building. You know what I'm saying? Because they kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nice part is hopefully by the end of this course, you all will have enough, base knowledge of R that whatever the specific things you're trying to do, you'll be comfortable enough that it'll be easy for you to go and look at what somebody else did in R to figure out what you need to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I did like the stats certificate.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, well, I'm taking this class one because I want to know like more about R. We use it in our lab. Our professor just like, we're very good in SAS, but our professor still makes us like get out of our like comfort zone and do stuff in R. Just like a couple graphs or like just summarizing data and things in general so we know how to play with it. So I wanted to get like better.
No, and I think that's excellent because, I mean, realistically, if you think of where you are in your professional trajectory, you're still really at the beginning of that trajectory. So by the time you get towards the end of your career, there's bound to be new software, something new that people are using. So the more flexible you are now and learn different programs and different languages, it's going to be easier for you later in your career to be more flexible. So I think that's great they're making you do that.
It's annoying sometimes.
It is. Well, it's hard. I mean, I remember when I first learned R, like, so so I got my PhD in statistics, and when I first went to graduate school, my undergrad was in mathematics, and I hardly used a computer at all. Like, I had used it a little bit, but barely. And so I did not realize the extent that I would need to know how to code when I went to graduate school. And I really had little to no background. And I just remember how hard it was. I mean, it was so frustrating because it is. It's like learning a new language, and it's just everything looks different than what you're used to. And it can be really frustrating.
No, and we really need like base level coding. We have like students in our program that are like at the end of like their masters and they just don't know how to code. And I learned it when I was an undergrad. Like I did research and someone like showed me a little bit of SAS, and then I took off.
Yeah.
But it took like a good couple weeks saying like, don't forget your semicolons. This is how you write the statements. And from there on, like you understand, you can Google stuff.
Yep. And that's really my goal with this class. By the end of the semester, people will have enough base knowledge that, like you said, they'll be able to take off and do what they need to do, based on a Google search or something like that. But they'll at least, they'll know that the dollar sign calls, a variable from a data set, all these kind of things that give you enough pieces that you can do what you need to do and, your individual trajectories. But you're right. I mean, that beginning, it's so frustrating. Especially, it's funny. I learned R first and then I learned SAS. And just because of the way that SAS is structured, I felt like it was so much harder for me coming from R to move over to SAS, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for me, it's like the complete opposite. I think like, I don't know, SAS makes sense, like the order of things.
Well, and all the statements, so you've got data steps, you got procedural steps, and they're structured very similar,
And
you
they're,
have
yeah,
data at the top, you structure it this way. Whereas
so
R is a little bit not flexible, maybe like, I don't know, it's just different.
exactly. I like the consistency that like SAS gives you on writing.
Yep. So it's definitely structured. But so it's funny for some things that you're doing, when it comes to analyses, I would say they're equal, especially being an ag. When it comes to experimental design, so I've taught experimental design in the past, and I would make my students use SAS in experimental design. And some of them had had R before, and they know that I prefer R generally. And they're like, "Why don't you make us use R?" And I'm like, "Because SAS is better at experimental design. It's really good at it. Like SAS is really good at experimental design. Use SAS, it's really good at it." But like when I do simulations in my other courses and things that are more program intensive, I would never use SAS for that. I use R because it has some things available that are a lot harder to do in SAS. Like you can make macros and things in SAS, but it's just a lot easier in R. So, but no, I guess what I'm saying is I completely understand frustration because I've been there.
Yeah. Try to knit this. Do you still want the regular pie chart there?
Yeah, you can leave it out, and I'll make an announcement once we're done that says that. You'll just need to have it in the script, but don't worry about having it in the notebook.
Something what it got mad.
Let's see here. Data equals ICU. Oh, it's because remember in the notebook, the first time you use Ggplot, you've got to do the library call up above it. So you could either do tidyverse or you could do Ggplot too. Either one will work. Yep. So try that and it should run fine.
Why did the graph run?
So it's a difference between knitting and previewing. When it previews the code, it's able to read what's already in your R environment because the previews are actually being run in RStudio and not being knitted. When it goes to knit, it does it a little bit separately. And so for that reason, that's why it couldn't do it in the knitting. And I'll be honest with you, some of those nuances I still get kind of stuck on, how it separates it out. I just know when you go to do the actual knitting process, it forces you to recall it forward so that it's available during the knitting process.
Interesting.
Did it? I can't see your doc. Did it? Oh,
no,
okay,
I'm pulling it up. Let's see. So that's pretty much what you want, and I'll just like finish up with the other one. So
exactly. In the main
load, a little bit about the data set, and then like a title, like a subtitle for the base. Is this?
And you had the same problem that Cameron? I just realized
Base
that.
function, histogram. Oh, I did not get a subtitle.
Yeah, see, it's right after the plot. See how it's got hashtag Ggplot right after? Ooh, go to your first plot. See right there?
Yeah.
So go back to your notebook for me. I think we just need to add a space beforehand is the reason. Yeah, do just go before that and hit enter, and now it should work fine. Let's try it again. I think it wants a blank space there. Oh, we'll have to reknit, but yeah. So anyway, so the purpose of this notebook was for y'all to see how to put headers and subheaders in, and then 2, to see how to get plots to put into notebooks, to put plots in notebooks. And then also this gives you a nice comparison that you can see those base functions and the Ggplot side by side and kind of what visually the difference is between them.
And then we're gonna get like to play with all the acts. Can you do like the base function expanded as the Ggplot does?
No, they're 2 separate things. And you'll find that the Ggplot actually, it's more complicated to use, but it has a lot more flexibility and can do a lot more. But yes, next week, all we're going to do is work in Ggplot next week. Pardon me, and you'll
So-
see all different kinds of things that we can do with the ggplots.
Okay, so this one, that's it then.
Yep.
And then I'll put the other things and submit. Cool. And already fixed the practical exercise and put it there. Cool.
Sounds good. And then, of course, if you need me, we still have time if you want to do it now, or if you want to get off, it doesn't matter either way. I was gonna say I'm also available via email if you run into.
Well, I'm gonna stay working. I just didn't want to keep you like staring at my screen in silence.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
If you want to keep talking, I'm fine with it.
No, I'll tell you what, we'll sit here. I've got some emails to answer, but that
Okay.
way, just in case you come up with an error, I'll be here to help.
Sounds
with it.
good. It's the other graph. For the base scatter plot, I'm guessing you want the colored one, right?
Sorry, I looked back over.
Yeah, this one didn't go.
Yeah, let's go look at it and see what happened with it. Oh, it's no. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's there. Oh, and you've got, yeah, I was gonna say you've got to have a space before the B. That should fix it.
I'm gonna try. What is like the project going to be?
So the project is, I'm gonna give you all, I found a real data set that is, hold on a second. I'm sure I don't misspeak here. It is, so it's a real data set for COVID-19 data.
Cool.
And it is, let's see, it's from all 50 states. I'm sorry, I was trying to remember what the variables are. Okay, here we go. So it's got a couple different categorical variables for patients. So it has sex, age group, race, ethnicity, whether or not the patient was hospitalized, whether or not they were in the ICU, and whether or not they died. And so what you all are going to do is to take this data set, you're going to visually summarize it and make a fact sheet that you could then take to like a meeting to help visually summarize this data. And I parsed it down. I took away all the missing observations and I did some cleaning because it was originally like 8 million observations. I think I got it cleaned down to about 1 million observations. It's a lot of observations. And so, you know, and that's for the mini project, that's all you'll do that week. So there's no new lectures, there's no other homework. You just focus on the mini project for that week. And so it's all going to be about, you know, first you'll have to make the plots to reason, you know, to figure out something interesting to summarize from the data. And then you'll create a fact sheet. You won't do it using a notebook, like you can use whatever software you want. And you'll just make like a well-organized, visually appealing fact sheet that you could take to a meeting to help summarize those variables. So like when we're in the College of Public Health, or this course is housed in the College of Public Health, one way to think of this would be, you know, like if you watch the governor's, are they daily or semi-daily, whatever his addresses are, how they always have those plots that they show.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're going to be making those style plots, but you're going to summarize it on a fact sheet that you could give people or you could, you know, present.
Cool. What do we have until then? Like 2 weeks, something like that?
It'll be just a week, but again, that's the only thing you're doing that week. No new notes.
Oh no, but like, is it next week? I don't know.
Oh, sorry. It's not next week. It's the week after.
Okay.
It's week 6. Yeah, so we'll do more in Ggplot, and you'll practice.
Which week?
Week 6. So we're in.
So week 4, 5.
Yeah, so this is week 4. Next week, week 5, and then week 6.
Okay. It's gonna be a long week. I have samples to take that week. Cool. I think that's it. It looks pretty enough for me.
Yep, looks pretty enough for me too.
Cool. No. I tried to modify your lab PDF.